Abhijeet Paul, who's teaching on Tuesday mornings from 10 to noon. The name of his course is Gandhi in his own words. And Abhijeet Paul is a South Asian Studies scholar and instructor here at UC Berkeley. Abhijeet.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, don't mind my overexposed video. Um, hello from my backyard. So I'll be doing this Gandhi course, trying to cover about 4 decades of Gandhi's life and works. One of the key issues that I will discuss in the class is in the course is Gandhi in his own words. So oftentimes we hear about Gandhi as one of those great leaders and figures of nonviolence, but we seldom think or pause or try to learn about what was Gandhi. Uh, because for Gandhi, who led a nationalist movement, an anti-imperial and anti-colonial movement in India, which had large repercussions in many other parts of the world. In fact, Gandhi could be simply attributed with one of those figures who not only helped India become liberated from British imperialist powers in the 1940s, but also many other countries in South and Southeast Asia, as well as other parts of the world, including South Africa later on, which fought apartheid. And in between, his influence was greatly felt in the civil rights movement. So it's a lot of geographical, geopolitical, and geocultural um, territories to cover, which in those 4 weeks. So the way I actually thought about the course is to actually look at Gandhi's own works. So we will be reading original materials from Gandhi's. Two main texts will stand out. One is his autobiographical writing called "The Story of My Experiments with Truth." Now, if anyone has known or read or even heard of Gandhi, one thing that comes usually to mind is Gandhi's relationship with truth, which I think is quite telling in our current times and climes. That Gandhi, as a thinker and a politician and a philosopher, had a very close relationship with what he deemed as truth, culled from not only religious, philosophical, political, and other texts, but also his own relationship with truth. Like, what does he actually feel about it, and how does it actually spill over into his political philosophy or philosophies in plural? So and the text, which we will, as I said, is the story of my experiments with truth. So it begins with his travels to England, his sort of coming in contact with the Quakers. He incidentally also became the president of the Quaker Society while he was studying law in England, at the behest of the wives of the Quakers, because he had become a vegetarian by then. And in England and the Quakers, they were also very curious about someone who had come from Asia and what they could learn from him, and so on and so forth. So all of those, so there are a lot of events that unfold in that particular text. So we're going to read excerpts. I'm going to select excerpts which are relevant to this particular kind of a discourse that Gandhi was trying to figure out. That's the first text. The other text we will read is on Satyagraha, which is a text based on Gandhi's perception of how to do civil disobedience, and concept and idea that he picked from. He basically learned from one of America's 19th century stalwart intellectuals and a big figure in the American transcendentalist movement in the later stages, at least, Henry Thoreau. We're going to find those connections there. And all of that, eventually reading Satyagraha, which is, how to do civil disobedience with truth in mind in a political landscape as fraught as an imperial and anti-colonial historical times. We'll learn about how this actually influenced the civil rights movement in the United States, especially in the works of Martin Luther King. And incidentally, after Gandhi died, 2 decades after Gandhi's death, MLK actually visited Gandhi's ashram, where Gandhi practiced much of his political philosophies in 1966. So we're going to also read Martin Luther King's perceptions of his trip to India and what he actually learned. So these are the three main pieces of writing that we are going to look at, in addition to looking at Gandhi speeches, or listening to Gandhi speeches, archived materials, some videos that we're going to watch, which were also made during Gandhi's time, like mainly short documentaries, and at the same time, Gandhi's, and at the same time, the film that Richard Attenborough, the brother of the naturalist David Attenborough, made in the early 80s, 1982, I believe, called Gandhi. So this will more or less comprise in terms of what materials we're going to cover. So as I say, the 4 decades will be divided up in the decade, based on the decades like 1910s, 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. So 1910s will begin with the excerpts from the story of my experiments with truth, and then there we'll learn about the making of Gandhi. And then between 1910 and 20s, Gandhi, who basically practiced law in South Africa and started this movement of satyagraha. And we're going to learn about that in the second class. And in the third class, we're going to we're going to learn a lot about Gandhi's relationship with nationalist and anti-imperialist and anti-colonial politics and history in India, because he came back to India in the late 1910s. 1920s through the 40s were extremely fraught, extremely complex. But at the same time, it was for Gandhi, it was a kind of a journey from political struggles to personal modes of realization. So we're going to cover that in the third class. And in the fourth, we're going to talk about Gandhi's assassination. Most nonviolent political leaders, ironically, have been assassinated. True of Lincoln, true of Gandhi, true of Dr. King. So we're going to talk about in the last class about Gandhi's influence in the wider world of politics, civil rights, and people's movements. And last not the least, the fourth class will also we'll touch on how Gandhi influenced the modern environmental movement. Most environmental movements today are they swear by Gandhi, partly because of Gandhi's very unique relationship with nature, unique relationship with modernity, unique relationship with how to live in a basically a bedlam world, and how to seek your personal truth in all this. So that's basically the course. I hope you guys enjoy it. There'll be lots of interactions through the chat room, and I would love for you to field questions today as well as throughout the course. Thank you.
Dr. Paul, thank you very much.